I still believe in cinematic art. But if you do cinematic art, you will encounter, hardship to get funded.
So our film was made as our graduation piece. We basically self-funded the whole thing. I think Ravensbourne gave us like £100, but we made it on £2,000, and a lot of favours, really.
We did have a fairly decent budget for a short, so I thought that it was all going to be doable, but a few things did have to come out, like I think we had tanks, and we had an ambulance, and we had mainly vehicles and things that were costly.
I kind of got myself thinking about how I could fundraise, and coming from a non-film background, I didn't have access to a lot of the resources and just didn't have the knowledge about how to fundraise for a film, so I just made a Kickstarter campaign.
We funded the film through different sources, so there was some NGO organisations who gave some money towards the film, and also the production companies that got involved.
We were forced to almost shoot chronologically, and that takes away a bit of the control you might have as a producer to schedule in a certain way.
Remember when we were first talking about scheduling, I was saying, Gadma, don't worry, we're going to have this filmed in no time. It's going to be really easy. Those famous last words, hey?
So the shoot took place over 5 days, 2 days in the UK, 3 days in Kosovo, and a pickup day back in the UK as well once we were back.
So our shoot was 4 days plus one morning because we had to travel out to a sort of slightly more remote location that we couldn't fit into the schedule. So it was 4 days with a tiny pre-shoot as well.
I shot the film myself over the course of 2 trips to China in a total of 5 weeks, the first trip being 2 weeks and the second trip being 3.
It was basically just a 2-day shoot. The hardest thing that we had to pull in a favour for was getting a police escort, which we actually managed to do for free, luckily, somehow, for both 2 days, because they normally get paid like £60 an hour or something. And also we were looking at getting an actual police car, but we ended up just getting the same model of car and just borrowing that, and then going way tighter on the shot so you can't even tell. And then we just got like a police light and that flashed at the back.
Shooting this on 35mm was incredibly difficult. There are no film labs or film stock out in Kosovo or anywhere near there. So we had to bring all of our film equipment and all of our film stock out to Kosovo and bring it all the way back for development without it being X-rayed or scanned.
So the party scene was like the key crux of the film because it's called The Party, and it's had to be like, a great party and really believable. And then I think we ended up with something like half an hour to shoot it. So it was quite scary, and the approach we took was just, the actors were absolutely amazing. They brought a brilliant energy to it and they were waiting for it all day. And then the DOP lit it in such a way that he could just turn the camera anywhere so that he didn't have to relight any angle. And we got in there, and I had a really clear shot in my head that I wanted, which is them all sort of grouped together, hugging and jumping around in a circle to the rhythm of the song. I knew I wanted that, and beyond that, I just wanted them to go for it, so I just gave them freedom. And there were a few moments we knew we had to catch. The sound recording team were actually brilliant because they individually mic'd all the actors, and they put a few sort of hidden booms in the room. And then he actually, the sound recorders turned the music up really loud. And I was thinking this will be all over there natural, but he said no, it won't because it's in another room. But they felt that energy. And I think usually during filming, you get, you turn the music up to give the actors a level, and then it cuts down and the energy dies. But we just kept the music up the whole time. And we just did that a few times, and they just went with the energy of the music really. And I said to the camera, Piers, the DOP, just go with them, just find them. And he's brilliant. He was just finding all these moments and pulling focus at the right time. And so it was good fun. But we literally shot it in about half an hour.
The trickiest element of the production for me was managing kind of multiple roles and trying to process kind of the information that I wanted to kind of convey during the film and the filmmaking process. And personally, on a kind of a personal level, it was quite difficult because China has kind of intense levels of pollution. So actually, on both trips, I got ill. So the film, even though we had such because of the way that the film was made, we had probably an hour or two in each location before we had to move on. And so I was having to manage all of these different roles whilst being quite ill.
In the beginning, the story was that, you know, it was a happy ending. But things kind of changed towards the end, so we then...
When we lost our faith
When we lost
midway through, we were like, it can't be true. So
happy endings don't happen anymore. So we were like, okay, we have to kind of change the ending because we didn't kind of believe in the ending that we had in the beginning. So it was like midway through production, we were like, okay, we don't have an ending. So
we went back to beat shoot. I think we went back to beat shoot. Yeah.
And try to like figure out how we can solve the ending.
So to be able to kind of tell this story more concisely, I took quite a few different people's sentiments and embodied them in this one protagonist, which was actually a certain kind of fictional element to the documentary that communicated the idea that I was trying to say, without having to cut between all of these different people and perhaps kind of take away a bit from the direct narrative that I wanted to put in the film.
Finding this process, and then as we did it, we were learning. That's the thing, you know, we didn't know anything about it, so we just learned as we went.
It was my ambition at the start to try and animate everything. I was very possessive over it, but as time went on, it sort of became more and more of an impossibility, and actually I realised that I have friends who are talented, and just getting them on board, you have to kind of relinquish a bit of control, but you just have to trust people.
I had animated on the project for quite a while, so I really knew what you could do with the puppets, and then you have to kind of give the puppet to someone else, and they literally have to bring them to life exactly how you did. And it's very interesting because when you work with woolly puppets, you really have to understand where to touch them, because if you touch them in different places, it shows in the film. So you know, it took 2.5 weeks to train the animators, and they were so lovely and so patient to the point where when, you know, they were animating, I remember talking to Ivan, who's the joint lead animator. I remember he said, oh, you know, when I go and touch, I hear your voice in my head. And I said, that's perfect.
I sort of pitched this to John, the writer, and Millie, the producer, and I was pretty keen on working with a co-writer from the very beginning. And yeah, it was fantastic working with John. We kind of sat in the library and just made each other laugh. I think it's really important in comedy to have someone to bounce off and see if things are actually funny, because you could just be on your own laughing to yourself.
I actually met Samir about a feature script, and when he came to that meeting, he brought some pictures of the location that we then shot Mouth of Hell at, and it was just amazing. I think that meeting, I was struck by Samir. He's a force of nature. His passion and his energy. We both agreed we wanted to tell a simple, beautiful story.
So you hadn't actually worked together before with me.
No.
And you weren't actually sure you wanted to work with a writer at the time. And I approached you and I was like, no, I want to work on this and we're going to work together. And I pitched you, I said, basically, I will work whichever way suits you and we'll find a way. Because you knew it wanted to be really visual and not necessarily tied down to like a proper script. So we did everything. We did storyboards, we went on like research trips together, we looked at materials, we post-it notes, a lot of post-it notes, a lot of index cards, then animatic. And what we would do is we came back to our beat sheet. Once we got our beat sheet and our 5 key beats, which we always had an image for the 5 beats of the film, we always like, it has to be able to be so simple you can tell it in 5 beats.
I'm an actor predominantly, and I read a workshop before I was working on a script, and I read at the workshop and she seen me, and then we met maybe 2 years later by chance at a party, and I had said, oh, I'm writing now, so you know, and she said, let me read your stuff, and I sent her my stuff, and then that was it. So it was kind of more luck than trying, I suppose.
So I got involved in the project when one of the producers, Farah Abishwisha, contacted me through my agent looking for a director to apply for some funding for a short film scheme, and she wanted a Northern Irish director, and she had a few scripts, and she sent them over and I read the scripts, but what she didn't know is that I already knew Connor, that we had almost worked together on a film, or we'd talked about it. I loved his writing already. I was really interested to read The Party when it came in, and I read it, and it grabbed me straight away.
I actually first met Daniel about 11 years ago on a flight to Sundance. He had a film playing there, and I was working for Sundance at the time. But this was the first time we'd worked together. So he emailed me and said, listen, I've got this project I want to work on. I've been developing it over here in Kosovo, and then I've been working on it in the UK. And I wanted to get some people together to make it.
Me and Jack had worked together for about a year on like gangster rap videos. So we'd always be on rooftops, like setting a like toilet roll with White Ace and stuff like that, doing really ghetto rap videos like Gun Fingers to the Camera and that. So I knew he was the person I wanted to work with because we'd worked together on everything for quite a while.
I've not got like a great amount of experience, but I was a runner for a few months. That was really interesting, just to kind of understand, you know, what goes on in a production company. And then I did a music video. But I think going to the NFTS really was where I kind of understood everything, you know. I think that was really great experience.
Before making the film, my main experience in the industry was rap videos. I started doing them when I was about 15 for local rappers that lived like on local estates and things like that. I've done about like 200 now, so it's just all like rooftops and rappers rapping to camera. And me and Jack had done some higher budget stuff, like around 2 and 3K, nothing big. So that was our main experience, yeah.
Before making this film, I had no experience in the film industry. My prime background has been in architecture, and although I went to quite an experimental architecture school where sort of photography and filmmaking is encouraged, professionally I had no experience in film at all.